Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Today we're going to talk about a little known prophecy by Joseph Smith, one that I didn't know until I got these comments on a couple of my videos. It has to do with England being symbolized as a lion, Russia a bear, and when Russia puts its paw on Great Britain, that the end is near. Okay, I'm just paraphrasing it. I'm going to read the comments that made me aware of this. Then we're going to go to the actual source, and then we're going to look at uh, an interesting happening when it comes to Russia and the UK within, the last several months, essentially. And then we're going to also differentiate the lion and bear when we're talking about Great Britain and Russia from other prophecies because it can kind of get confusing. So let's start with the comments. Okay. So first, let's just do it in order. We have Mike L 10 days ago. He said, "While on my mission, I read a book called Prophecies of the Prophet Joseph Smith. In it, I read one prophecy that said, when the Russian bear lays its hand upon the British lion, the winding up scene is not far off." Okay. And then Lisa Higgs, she said, I spent the day studying the prophecy of 9/11 in the scriptures. The eagle is the US, the lion is UK, the bear is Russia. So this star explosion in the constellation of the Arrow, which is used to kill the eagle, looks like the US is headed for some hard times. Okay. And so I want to clear up because in that video, I can't even remember what I was talking about in that video. I think we were looking at Ezra's eagle. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. So, but that was from Lisa Higgs. Jeannie Heyer says, I believe it was President Benson who said there would be war in America that would last 13 months, and it would make World War II look like a quote-unquote summer picnic. Joseph Smith also said that the end is near when the bear, Russia, attacks the lion, England. I'm going to have to save the President Benson one for later. If anybody has that reference, if you could send it to me, my email, that'd be great. My email's in the description box of each video. So that sounds interesting. I hadn't heard that before. And then we have Ronald Dunlap. He says, you might want to do a presentation on a little known prophecy of Joseph Smith that may happen soon. Joseph Smith prophesied that directly before the second coming that, quote, the lion, Great Britain, and the bear, Russia, would have conflict, war. I heard about this for years. I had the church history department look into it. The prophecy was found in a church manual from the 1880s, I think. Anyways, I think it was Joseph telling the father of Wilford Woodruff about the two countries going to battle. If you look at the news in the last year, you see Russians threatening to nuke Great Britain many times. Also, in a sense, Great Britain and Russia are at war now because of the help Britain is giving Ukraine. You might want to look into this little known prophecy. So I decided that I would. Okay, so you can find this. This is on the church website. Their catalog for the Juvenile Instructor. That was a church magazine. And this particular one, close. It wasn't 1880. This is from 1890. Volume 25. I'll put the link in the description below so you can go there for yourself. Okay, it starts off, and this is so bizarre to me. It starts off telling some random story about a Russian naval station that doesn't even have anything to do with the prophecy, and then there's just like a hard change in topic, and it's like right here it says, let me zoom in. Speaking of Russia brings to mind a prophecy. Like that's kind of like, this is like the more important part of this entire article, and I feel like the article should be named after the prophecy, but no, it's hidden. Okay, speaking of Russia brings to mind a prophecy which is accredited to the prophet Joseph Smith concerning this country. Speaking of Russia. Elder Jesse W. Fox Sr. Received the narration from Father Taylor, the father of the late President John Taylor. The old gentleman said that at one time the prophet Joseph was in his house conversing about the Battle of Waterloo, in which Father Taylor had taken part. Suddenly the prophet turned and said, quote, "Father Taylor, you will live to see, though I will not, greater battles than that of Waterloo. The United States will go to war with Mexico and thus gain an increase of territory. The slave question will cause a division between the North and the South, and in these wars, greater battles than Waterloo will occur. But," he continued with emphasis, "when the great bear, Russia, lays her paw on the lion, England, the winding up scene is not far distant." End quote. Okay, so we know that these other things have already happened, right? The United States, Mexico, the Civil War. Okay, these things have happened. This one does not seem to have happened yet, and I'll show you a history of conflicts between Russia and the UK. But let's just finish this off. These words were uttered before there was any prospect of war with Mexico, and such a thing as division in the United States was never contemplated. Yet these fierce struggles came, and though Joseph Smith himself was slain before they occurred, Father Taylor lived to witness some of the world's most remarkable battles. The struggle between the bear and the lion has not yet happened, but as surely as Joseph the prophet ever predicted such an event, so surely will it not fail of its fulfillment. All right, and that's it. This one prophecy in the Juvenile Instructor, hidden in an article called "A Russian Naval Station." And it doesn't even start out talking about that prophecy. Okay, so let's take a look. I was like, okay, well, could this maybe have been fulfilled in any way? So I took a look at, let's see. Well, let me do this in order. Okay, so the bear is a symbol of Russia. Okay, if you weren't aware, let's read this. The Russian bear is a widespread symbol, generally of a Eurasian brown bear for Russia, used in cartoons, articles, and dramatic plays since as early as the 16th century, and relating alike to the Russian Empire, the Russian Provisional Government, and Russian Republic, the Soviet Union, and the present-day Russian Federation. It was often used by Westerners, originated in British characters, and later also in the United States, and not always in a flattering context. On occasion, it was used to imply that Russia is brutal, and clumsy. So, here's an American political cartoon, 1904. You have Russia, okay, depicted as a bear. There's a few more down here. Misha, the teddy bear, the mascot of Moscow Olympics 1980. Right there. Banner depicting the Russian bear unfurled by Russian football supporters. The inscription says, "Forward Russia." Right there. Coat of arms of Novgorod. And then, here's some of the political cartoons, not so flattering of Russia. Okay, so there you go. And then everyone should know that one of the animals that symbolize the UK, well, I guess specifically England, it's the lion, right? Royal Arms of England. There's 3 lions. So there you go. Now, okay, now let's do this. So I found this article, which shows a number of conflicts between Russia and the UK. So after the time of Joseph Smith, the first one after his passing, or after he said that, was the Crimean War, but that wasn't really, you wouldn't consider this as Russia putting its paw on the UK. They were fighting over here, and in this case, Russian troops could do little against the joint forces of the great powers, and it just doesn't really fit the bill. The Great Game, where you have this depiction right here, the lion and the bear. Okay, the Great Game. In the 19th century, the whole vast region of Central and Southern Asia became an arena of confrontation between the Russian and British empires. Absorbing small and weak local nations and states, they fought each other politically and diplomatically, waging spy and proxy wars. So as not to allow this peculiar Cold War, quote unquote, to turn into open hostilities, the Russians and British avoided the establishment of joint borders, always leaving a line of buffer states between them. So uh, I wouldn't say that this probably qualifies as the bear putting her paw on the lion either. I mean, I don't know. I'm not qualified to declare prophecy, but this doesn't seem like that would be it either. And then Allied intervention in Russia. This is where Britain sends some troops to Russia. So and that's it. And that's pretty much it. Famously, we had the Cold War, which the UK was a part of. Was a part. I'm not sure that I would really classify that as fulfillment of the prophecy. You think what you want. Uh, Now, the interesting thing that it was Ronald that he was referring to, I had actually come across this. Look at this. Russia just threatened to destroy Ireland and Britain with a nuclear tsunami. Okay. This was earlier this year, May 3rd. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard of a nuclear tsunami, but it's going to talk about it here. If the British continue to send weapons to Ukraine, then Britain and Ireland face destruction by a nuclear tsunami. That's the unmistakable message from Russian media, which recently ran 2 animated videos depicting nuclear strikes on the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. And if you want to see those animations, I'll put this is a separate site, but it has the thing right here, and here's the animation. You have the bomb going off over here to the northwest of the 2 islands, and then it depicts both of them being entirely covered by a tsunami. Okay, so you can go check that out if you want. This might be a separate one because it did say that there were 2, right? Yeah, 2 animated videos. So I didn't look at this one beforehand. I'll have to check that out later. So anyway, the videos, which ran on state-owned television channel Russia 1, were narrated by Dmitry Kisilov, a television presenter known as quote-unquote Putin's mouthpiece. The first video shows a submarine launching a Poseidon, Russia's notorious thermonuclear armed torpedo designed to create a giant radioactive tsunami that destroys enemy coastal cities. That's a great thought, a radioactive tsunami, as if a tsunami wasn't bad enough. The explosion of this thermonuclear torpedo by Britain's coastline will create a giant tsunami wave up to 500 meters or 1,640 feet high. That is quite high. Kisilov warned, according to a BBC journalist who translated the videos. Quote, such a barrage alone carries extreme doses of radiation. Having passed over the British Isles, it will turn whatever might be left of them into a radioactive desert. That is kind of terrifying. I'm glad I'm not in a position where I have to worry about a nuclear tsunami. Kansas, and this might be a good reason to move to Missouri or the Heartland or Kansas. This is as far inland as you can get. Okay, the geographic center of the lower 48 states is actually in Kansas. For North America, I think it's actually in, oh geez, I'm not sure if it's South Dakota or North Dakota. I think it's maybe South Dakota. You can correct me if you know. But anyway, if you want to avoid nuclear tsunamis, here you go. Well, I guess we're getting elevated, right? If you're high up in elevation. So Okay. Moscow has long threatened to nuke Britain during tense moments dating back to the 1956 Suez Crisis. But most striking about the recent video was that the torpedo wasn't shown exploding off Liverpool or Portsmouth on the British mainland. The detonation happened several hundred miles to the west of the British mainland in the North Atlantic off the coast of Northern Ireland. The thermonuclear tsunami then swept Northern Ireland and then onto mainland Britain. The problem is that Ireland is an island cloven in two. There is Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom, a NATO member that was a staunch opponent of the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and now is supplying weapons to Ukraine against the Russian invasion. Let's see. There's more. In case you don't know what that's talking about, if you're not that good with geography, the UK, the country of the UK, is made up of Scotland, England, Wales, and then they still have Northern Ireland, this area right here. This is part of the UK. The rest of the island is the separate country of Ireland. Okay. The problem is that the nuke or the animation showed the tsunami covering both islands in their entirety. So, as for the second video, it was aimed at comments by British officials supporting Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory, as well as driving Russian forces from all Ukrainian territory. The video shows an RS-28 Sarmat, Russia's newest ICBM, nicknamed, and this is great, nicknamed the Satan II, being launched from Western Russia and landing in central England. Quote, it actually seems like they're raving on the British Isles, Kiselyov said. Quote, why threaten never-ending Russia with nuclear weapons when you're on an island that is so small? The island is so small that one Sarmat missile is sufficient to sink it once and for all. End quote. Of course, the fact that the UK is geographically smaller than Russia is irrelevant for purposes of mutual destruction. However, many ICBMs Russia has, what matters what matters is that Britain has 4 Vanguard-class nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, each armed with up to 16 American-made Trident II missiles equipped with multiple nuclear warheads. That arsenal is probably sufficient to turn Russia into a nearly pre-industrial state. Okay. So, don't worry about the land size. The land size isn't what matters, or it's not what matters, or even necessarily the population. They both have enough nukes to basically destroy each other. Okay. So, I mean, these are probably just threats. But who knows? Things are going really crazy right now. I never thought that we would have this kind of war happening in Europe. I guess I was lulled into a false security, thinking that after, World War II and after the Cold War, that now we were in an era of peace in Europe, relative peace, with smaller things like you had Serbia, Kosovo, you had that going on. But as far as major wars, major conventional land wars, I naively thought that was a thing of the past, but it's not. And so who's to say that more can't happen? It might. I don't know. So anyway, that's what we have going on with Joseph Smith's prophecy. Right now, of all times, is probably the most likely time when it would happen. What other time would it happen? Unless the second coming is just so far in the future. Once we get past this conflict, So hypothetically speaking, if we get past this conflict and everything somehow resolves itself, something must happen in the future where world war breaks out, and it happens at that point. But I don't know. I think what we're witnessing right now, this year in 2022, may be the thing that brings that prophecy about, which is interesting because we would have had no like good candidates if we were talking about this last year in 2021 or even this year in January. We would go over this prophecy and be like, well, I don't know, World War III could happen, and we know that it's going to happen. So I guess when that happens, that'll happen. But now we are actually seeing a conflict where these kind of threats are being made from Russia to the United Kingdom. So I don't know. We might want to take this seriously. Now, the next thing I want to point out, because I feel like there's a lot of times that people get confused when we're talking about different animals and beasts that show up in the Bible, like specifically the Bible. Do not confuse this lion and this bear with what you read in Daniel and in the book of Revelation. And I'll show you why. Okay, so in the book of Daniel, Daniel sees a vision, okay, and he sees 4 beasts. So let me just read this. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised itself upon one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth, and of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this, in the night visions, I behold a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. And then it goes on to describe it, but it doesn't compare it to a particular animal. So the first was a lion with eagle's wings. The next one was a bear. The next one was a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. Okay? Do not confuse these with Joseph Smith's prophecy. When we go to the Institute manual, it has a lot to say about these. Okay, what is the connection between the 4 beasts and historical events? As mentioned in Daniel 7, chapter 17, the 4 beasts represent, quote, 4 kings or kingdoms, which shall rise out of the earth. The first, which was like a lion with eagle's wings, represented the Babylonian kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar. The lion and eagle are both supreme among beasts of their class. The head of gold in the dream of chapter 2 can be similarly compared. Yeah, I should pull this up too. LDS Nebuchadnezzar's dream. I don't know if that's how it's spelled. Images. There's one in particular I want to look at, this one, on the church website. Let's blow it up. So Nebuchadnezzar had his dream, and this is what he saw. Okay, an image. The head was gold. It's the Babylonian Empire. The arms and breasts, the Median Persian empires. The belly and thighs, the Macedonian or Greek Empire. The legs, the Roman Empire. And then the feet and toes of clay are the remnants, or in other words, the modern day nation states that trace their roots back to the Roman Empire, including the United States, Canada, and Western Europe. Okay, so going back here, going to this, it says, so the gold, or sorry, the lion with wings and the gold head, those represent Babylon. And this has a lot to do with, the current situation that Daniel was facing, because Babylon had invaded and destroyed um, Judah and taken them captive. So it's kind of like a timeline from that captivity all the way down to the last days until right now. And these would be like the four main um, empires, essentially, that would afflict the saints and persecute the saints and uh, rule the nations and you know be a problem. Not everything was bad. Not everything is bad about them, obviously, but these are the worldly kingdoms. Okay, the second beast represented the Median Persian Empire, as did the breast and arms of silver in the image of chapter 2. The bear was considered next to the lion as the strongest among animals by the people of the ancient Middle East. Um, and that's an interesting idea. If you think about that when we're thinking about the UK and Russia, if we're thinking about the UK in terms of not only the United Kingdom, but all the nations that it gave birth to, including Canada, the United States, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and others, it's actually, I would say, more supreme than Russia if you take all that together. So that's kind of like an interesting little parallel. But again, not talking about the same beast, but the way that the ancient Middle Eastern people viewed lions and bears. It's interesting that that might still apply to today, comparing the UK and Russia. All right. The raising up on one side could represent the raising of the forefeet of the bear, standing on its hind feet, as when it goes after prey. The Medo-Persian bear, as such, has two sides. The median side, is at rest after the efforts made for the erection of the world kingdom, but the other, the Persian side, raises itself up and then becomes not only higher than the first, but also is prepared for new rapine. The third kingdom corresponds to the Greek Empire of Alexander the Great. Wings signify power to move and extend influence. Heads signify governing power or seat of government. The Grecian government was extended greatly under Alexander and had power over much of the earth. And when that happened, it had a pretty significant influence over Israel. Israel had essentially adopted Hellenism and Greek culture as a result of this, and this is what led to the Maccabees and the Maccabean revolt, and it set the stage for the New Testament, for New Testament times. Anyway, and then later it talks about the last beast. It represents Rome, and it's not associated with a particular animal. Now, this brings us to Second Esdras. This is where you find Ezra's eagle. And it seems like this is related to what Daniel saw. Okay. It talks about this eagle, which clearly is a kingdom. It's an empire. And according to this, okay, let me read you this part. So after all the feathers are plucked and stuff like that, this is in his vision, Ezra's vision. I looked and saw something like a lion being roused, roaring out of the forest. This lion is the anointed one. This is the Messiah. This is Christ. Okay. I heard how he spoke in a human voice and said to the eagle, "Listen, listen you, and I will speak to you. The Most High says to you, aren't you the last of the four beasts that I made to rule in my world, so that I might bring about the end of my times through them?" Okay. Later, it goes on to interpret the vision. It says that the lion is the anointed one. That's the word for Messiah. Mashiach, it means anointed one. And so the lion would be Christ, and he's the one that ultimately is the king. He's the one that takes over. Um, Later, basically, he tells the eagle to go away, and it does, but then it's burnt to a crisp, and it's over. So it's interesting that in Second Esdras, if this is a true vision, if this is like actual, if you could consider this actual scripture, and maybe it will in the future, maybe it'll be brought in, but right now it's apocryphal. But if it's true, that would be interesting that the fourth beast is revealed to be an eagle. Just because, like we talked about in that one video, we know that the eagle is a symbol of the United States. It's been a symbol of Rome. Okay, it's been a symbol and still is a symbol of Germany. And Germany was essentially, it was trying to establish the third Roman Empire. Okay, there's certain words I want to avoid, but the first Roman Empire would have been the first, and then there was a time in Germany, and you can feel free to correct me because I'm not very strong with some of my knowledge when it comes to this, but there was a time when Germany, or these lands right here, referred to themselves as the Holy Roman Empire. And then later, during World War II, the intention was to become the third, and that it would last for 1,000 years, right? So that didn't work out, but these are the countries that have eagles as their national symbol. Okay, so anyway, it can get confusing, but yeah, we want to make sure to keep the two separate. Keep the beasts of the book of Daniel and Revelation separate from Joseph Smith's prophecy about the UK and Russia. Also, in the book of Revelation, there's another set of 4 beasts, but those are different from Joseph Smith explains that the 4 beasts and the 24 elders, that was something that he actually saw. They were not an image, they were not a metaphor for kingdoms. Okay, so when you're reading about, and I already went over that in that video. Okay, if you want to, if you missed it, let me pull it up. It was this video. So let me pull this up so I don't forget about it. In this video, I go over Ezra's eagle, like some of it, and just a lot of this like symbolism. Okay. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So, and I go over what Joseph Smith said about the 4 beasts and the 24 elders. They are different. In that case, they were actual beings that John was seeing. There's sometimes I think that there's people that misunderstand what that's about because they view that story of John seeing the 4 elders and the 24 beasts as like a prophecy of the future, but it's not. According to Joseph Smith, he was actually having a vision. So it's as though, like, okay, look. So if you hear somebody that's like, well, see, here's the 4 beasts and the 24 elders, and look, this just happened, and so this was fulfillment of that scripture. That would be the same as saying, like, you take the first vision. Joseph Smith saw God the Father and Jesus Christ. It's as though you were reading Joseph Smith history, and then you're like, oh, you know what? Something happened over here in Utah where, see, this is Joseph Smith, God the Father, and Jesus Christ when this happened. It doesn't make sense because the first vision was not a prophecy. It was a record of a vision that Joseph Smith had. And likewise, with the 4 elders in the 4 beasts and the 24 elders, John was actually having a vision. He was not seeing the future at that point. He was observing the greatness of God and how all things worshipped God. So anyway, but like for that quote, just go to this video and I read it, what Joseph Smith said about that. And he lays it out pretty clear. There's not really any room for doubt. Wait, was it this one? You know what? I'm not sure if it was in this video because I don't see the tab for the scripture citation index. Oh, here we go again. Better find it. Okay. Let me do this now or else I'll forget. Let's see. I'm going to look for image. Yeah, right here. It's basically right here. I'm not going to read it again, but I'll put this in the description in case you want to read it. Oh yeah, the beast John saw was an actual beast. An actual intelligent being gives him his power and his seat and his great authority. It was not to represent a beast in heaven. It was the angel of heaven who has power. No, that's not it. No, here it is. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I guess I will just read it again. Says 1, I cannot believe in the salvation of beasts. Any man who would tell you that this could not be would tell you that the revelations are not true. John heard the words of the beast giving glory to God and understood them. God who made the beast could understand every language spoken by them. The 4 beasts were four of the most noble animals that had filled the measure of their creation and had been saved from other worlds because they were perfect. They were like angels in their sphere. We are not told where they came from, and I do not know, but they were seen and heard by John praising and glorifying God. Okay, so the 4 beasts in 24 hours, that's literal. It actually happened. The beast rising out of the sea, that is like made up of the beasts from Daniel. That was figurative, and the interpretation is given for it. That's how you know that it was figurative. But these ones are not. It's literal. And now Joseph Smith's prophecy here, this is figurative. He's specifically talking about Russia and the UK and referring to them by their national symbols. Okay? Sorry, I didn't mean to be repetitive, but... So, let me know what you think. Do you think that this conflict happening right now between Russia and Ukraine, do you think that this will be the conflict that brings about that prophecy? Do you think that Russia putting her paw on the lion, do you think that that's an attack? Do you think it's a military action? Do you think it's some kind of political action or move or threat? How do you see it? I'm not going to lie. I think right now I'm actually trending, like, not trending. I'm tending to think that maybe it would be some kind of military attack. I'm not going to say like a nuclear attack, but maybe Russia will be so upset that they will actually, send a warning shot to the UK. Or maybe it'll just turn into all-out war. I'm not sure if it will, though, because, again, it seems like Russia is really struggling over here. If they can't, if they can't even take over Ukraine, then how is it that they're going to attack the United Kingdom and think that it's going to work out? Unless by that point we're actually in World War III, and now Russia is allied with like China and Iran and maybe others, and therefore it's not fighting the war alone, and it could afford to attack the UK. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. I think that it would probably have to get to that point, because if Russia attacked the UK or even any NATO country, it's probably going to draw the full force of NATO against it. For a country that's struggling with this little country right here, having all the rest of these come against you probably isn't going to work that well. Unless, you know, they threaten to start using strategic nuclear bombs. They're like, look, we hit you. This is a warning shot. Stop supporting Ukraine with weapons. This is what we will do to you if it comes down to it. And then the West is like, okay. And then they're still dragging their feet because they don't want to get into a war with Russia. So I don't know. So many different possibilities. You just let me know what you think. Okay. Make sure to check out these videos right here. It's kind of jaw-dropping that they would actually put this on their TV. Oh, here's another one right here. But I think this one down here is the same as this one up here. I'm not sure. I'll have to watch it. Ambassador Fianna Fáil, MEP for Ireland South, Billy Keller, said the government should summon Russia's ambassador to the state, Yuri Filatov, to inform him about, quote, our absolute disgust about the Russian broadcast. It's a threat advocating violence against Ireland, and that's completely unacceptable. It's quite disgusting, he said. I wouldn't regard it as a threat against Ireland, really, no. It's standard bellicose language you see on state-controlled media. It's not completely clear. He's aware Ireland is a separate country, a diplomatic source said. But the audience for this isn't Irish or British people. It's international propaganda for Russian people. But it does, I suppose, highlight the unfortunate act that if the UK was subject to a nuclear attack, unlikely as that is, Ireland would almost certainly be caught up in it. Yeah, that's not a good situation. Not a good situation at all. All right, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video. If you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.